Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland will table her budget on Tuesday. It's expected to include investments to compete with the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act. But already Biden's visit to Canada included announcements with Canada that look to a green energy future. Earlier, I spoke to François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, about some of this. Minister Champagne, thank you for being here this morning.
It's a real pleasure to be back, I would say.
Well, we'll see. We'll see at the end of the interview whether you still say that. But
listen, that's okay.
One of the significant announcements to come out of this visit was on critical minerals, that companies from both countries now will be eligible for money from a $250 million U.S. fund. How big a deal is that for Canada in terms of being able to access American money for development?
Well, I would say it's very important because it's really like a down payment. I would not focus on the amount, but the message it sends to an American audience, because you have to remember when the president speaks, he doesn't speak only to a Canadian audience, but to the audience in the United States, is to say, let's do things together. For me, what came out of this visit, and I think the president said it in the best possible terms, he said, we can do big things when we work together. And for me, taking that message on critical mineral, in space, and what we did in semiconductor is very powerful, because now it allows people like me and others to go down south and make sure that we get these investments like we've done in the last few months, I would say. But this is a very powerful message.
Well, speaking of messages, I wonder what message it sends to China.
Well, it's pretty clear to me is that we're going to be working with our allies and our partners around the world. You know that I've blocked 3 transactions recently where Chinese interests wanted to buy lithium mine in Canada. And the fact that we're saying now we're going to work with our allies and partners around the world, I think it's a very powerful message. And also that, you know, there's a recognition. We know that on this side of the border, but it's always good when the president acknowledges it, is that the uniqueness of our supply chain. And for me, that was very powerful. I just saw on social media, he recognized the $2.5 billion a day of commercial exchange between our two countries. Those are the type of things we know here. But for him to say it and to reinforce it and to talk even, listen, I was so pleased when I heard him talk about Bromont and the corridor that we've talked about, semiconductor. That's an idea we put forward 3 months ago about. And now the president talks about semiconductor, recognizing that the largest plants for testing and packaging is in Canada, and that we need to do more together. Those are very powerful messages. And I can tell you, my phone has been ringing since then.
What does it say to those, Minister, who are concerned about the President and the United States approach to Buy American, that they are worried that Canada is still going to get hit when it comes to trade? That what you heard from the President on Friday, these concrete examples you're giving, how does that match with this issue around Buy American?
Well, we'll always have to push. You know, we've learned that. I mean, this is not new. There's always issue when you have a relationship like that between Canada and the United States, these issues around softwood lumber, around Buy America. But I think one thing I noted, Rosie, and I don't know if you did, but the president used the word North America more than once in his speech in the House of Commons. And that sense of togetherness and everything that he said also when we were with him and his team, I think there's at a time where we see that democracies need to work more together, that we need to align our supply chain with our values, that we need to talk about continental onshoring. I would say those should be reassuring words for Canadians and Canadian businesses, because it's not always the fact that you have a president which is so boastful about the nature of the relationship and the integration of our supply chain. So for me, that's going to have rippling effect in our negotiation on Buy America.
Minister Freeland has said that the budget on Tuesday will invest aggressively in clean energy, but there are plenty of people, as you know, Minister, who say there's no way we can compete with the billions in subsidies being offered in the U.S. So how do we do that? How do we remain competitive? Is it, for instance, as Reuters is reporting, by introducing a 30% investment tax credit to boost clean tech? How do we make sure that we can compete even if we don't have those kinds of funds to do so?
Well, I mean, one thing that we decided, and we said that in the last fall economic statement, is that we're going to be selective. This is not just a Canadian issue, Rosie. I mean, Germany is looking what they can do. The European Union are looking what they can do. The point is that we need to remain competitive, and we need to make sure that we can draw investment in Canada. I think there's a recognition. We just had Volkswagen recently that people recognize the competitive advantages of Canada, the labor force that we have, the very talented workers, renewable energy, critical minerals, access to market. You can never win on the money. The United States is the reserve currency of the world. So we need to be more nimble. We need to be more strategic. We need to be more targeted. And that's exactly what we did in the case, for example, of Volkswagen.
Will we get how much money Canada has offered to Volkswagen? Will that come out on Tuesday's budget?
Sure,
will we see?
always.
Yes. Yeah.
Always. But it would not be smart for me to say it now, and I think Canadians understand that. The reason is because we're talking to others. And if we tell everyone in the world what we've done, that would not allow us to get the best possible deal for Canadians. But
so we won't know. So we won't know that Tuesday. We'll know it at some point, but not on Tuesday.
I mean, in due course, we will do a full disclosure. We always do. There's nothing. Okay. We did that in all the other investment in the auto manufacturing sector. But for now, you just said it. How competitive we were competing with states in the United States, with other jurisdictions. And to land the first overseas gigafactory of Volkswagen is a big win. And since then, I would say, Rosie, the phone is ringing, because if it's good for Volkswagen, it's good for a lot of people. So we just need to preserve a bit of our space here to make sure that we can land these deals for Canadians on the best possible terms.
Just one last question, and a more general question about the budget, if I can, because the minister has obviously said this is going to provide targeted relief for some Canadians to deal with inflation. I wonder how the government determines who is most in need of additional supports right now. Who is going to get this additional money that Minister Freeland has? Because she said there's not a lot of it and it's not for everyone.
Well, I cannot go into specific of the budget, as you know, but one thing that I think Canadians have learned is that we have their back. We had that during COVID. We help people in many different ways. We know now what's top of mind to Canadians is grocery, the cell phone bills. I mean, there's a number of things which are impacting Canadians. And I can tell you, myself, Minister Freeland, the Prime Minister, we're all focused on making life more affordable for Canadians, but at the same time, investing in our future. Like you've seen, for example, with recent investments, the discussion on semiconductors, critical minerals, the electric vehicle. So there's going to be a balance of helping people and making sure that Canada can succeed in the economy of the 21st century.
Minister Champagne, good of you to make the time. Thank you, sir.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you again.